Hello and good evening, everyone. Eccentric Artists is very happy to host our featured artist Q&A Producers Edition. My name is Samantha Rodriguez, and I'll be your host for tonight. If this is your first time joining us, here's a little breakdown of tonight's live stream. For the first 45 minutes, I'll be asking our featured artists here a variety of questions. Then we'll be transferring over to audience questions. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask any of our guests, feel free to enter them into the chat at any time, and our team behind the scenes will be sure to save them for later. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our guests tonight. First, we have Leslie Gomez. She is a Mexican-American director and producer in Las Vegas, having collaborated with notable production companies, agencies, as well as independent creatives. Leslie produces film, television, short films, narratives, music videos, as well as live shows. She prioritizes telling human stories about marginalized groups and underrepresented people. Leslie is currently working at UFC story producing, and when she's not watching a fight, she's always fighting to represent the people.
Hi guys.
Thank you for being here, Leslie.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And next we have Rebecca Brickey. She was born outside of Salt Lake City and raised in Las Vegas in a religious Mormon setting. Rebecca found love for coveted film at a young age. Being told that you can't watch raunchy, obscure, R-rated movies makes you want to watch them even more and appreciate their value. Rebecca had the fulfilling opportunity to become founding president of a women in film group called Cinefems at UNLV and served as the president for 2 years. They honor female stories, filmmakers, and sparked a discussion surrounding a lack of female presence on set. She graduated in 2012 with a Bachelor of Arts in Film. She says she would not have the experiences and such unique opportunities if it weren't for her amazing film community here in Vegas. Rebecca, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Of course, thank you. And then last but not least, we have Constanza Castro and Doménica Castro. Constanza and Doménica are sister filmmakers from Mexico City and the founders of 271 Films, a creative production company based in Los Angeles that creates intelligent, innovative, story-driven, cutting-edge, and socially conscious content, including commercials, branded pieces, music videos, TV, and film. Collectively, their work has garnered over 2 billion views, and they've produced numerous award-winning videos, short films, and commercial content that have been featured on The New Yorker Screening Room, Nylon, Vice, HBO, BET Networks, MTV, Billboard, and their films have played in festivals worldwide, including AFI Fest, Tribeca, Berlin, Palm Springs, and many more. They teamed up with Lena Waithe's Hillman Grad Productions and Indeed to produce 10 films helmed by 10 Black identifying people of color directors, projects which premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. The sisters have been honored as the 2021 Nevada Women Filmmakers of the Year. They are drawn to stories that put a spotlight on marginalized communities, question the status quo, push boundaries, and provoke, inspire, and entertain the audience. So Constanza and Doménica, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So on behalf of Eccentric Artists, we would once again like to thank all of you for being here tonight. I'd also like to give a shout out to our tech producer, Jemson, Yumiko Boyozos, and our social media wizard for tonight, Carlin Musni. Before we jump into our questions for tonight, please sit back and enjoy a short video showcasing the work of our featured artists here. Okay, I am getting notice that our video is not cooperating right now. So we'll get started with the questions and then we'll be able to take a look at these amazing women's work a little bit later. So to start us off, all of you filmmakers have worked as producers. So I'd like to ask all of you, what is the most rewarding part of being a producer for you?
I feel like the most rewarding part of being a producer is to ensure a good collaborative environment. And I think that the producer can really have a lot of insight and input into how, teams come together, and to make sure that like everybody's challenging each other and bringing each other up and the work up. And so I think like collaboration is one of my favorite parts about being a producer. I know that collaboration is part of like all every aspect of filmmaking, but I think putting teams together and like being like, wow, this person with this person would be incredible, and just sort of like finding the teams and making them come together is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, I think for me as well, collaboration is like a big reason why I think I even started wanting to tell stories. When I was younger, the theater kind of made me a little scared actually. Whenever we would go see movies as a family, my mom didn't really like to be in the dark because she couldn't see very well. And I guess I kind of like fed off of that kind of anxiety. And I also was like, oh, I guess I don't like the movies. But then we would play behind the scenes videos at home. And for me, it was like the love of like making, like just seeing a lot of people come together and making the films. And I think when I came to work in film, it was exactly the same. That was like the thing that I was like, yes, this is why I think I like to make movies. And I also really love the process of like the relationship with the director and the relationship with each of your teams. I think the relationship with the director and the producer has to be super, super solid. There has to be a lot of trust. And I love to, forge that connection with directors. And then that also translates into the rest of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of lost sight of why I originally got into storytelling and filmmaking. After UNLV, I took a big hiatus doing something else. And when I came back to film, I was more concerned just about making money and not necessarily the process. And then, COVID happened and I met some really passionate people who were like, let's go make a short film, back like when we were in college. And I was like, oh, I missed that. So we made a short film that just recently came out called Tunnel Rat. My friend Patrick Rigglesberger, has an intoxicating passion for film. And I was just like, let's do it. We built a tunnel in my backyard. We got a bunch of us together, Ryan Galvin, Triana, the whole crew. And it was magic. And I felt like I finally had a purpose again. So like leading that team and just seeing the final product was amazing. And it gave me a really good feeling. So.
That's awesome. I'm really glad that you were able to come back to film and still enjoy it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with both of those things. I actually, speaking of COVID, I think for me, like that really made me realize as a producer, like how important it was to like provide people jobs. And like, I think like that's what I like felt was so, I mean, you could, change somebody's life, by giving them a purpose and a meaning to, to go out and work and have, somewhere where they're needed. So I love being collaborative. And yeah, that was something that sort of changed for me, I think, during COVID. I realized the impact that producers have on like the entire, I guess, the entire ecosystem of people working. So yeah, I think just providing people a place to be employed was my favorite part of it right now.
That's awesome. That's cool. So you guys talked a lot about like finding new collaborators and, working with new people and collaborating. How do you start to build your web of connections within the industry? Like, how do you find the people that make you want to make things?
For me, I know the relationships that I formed at UNLV have somehow stemmed in all different directions, and now someone knows someone knows someone, and that's how I get most of my jobs. I for a while was set, I didn't need school, or I didn't need a college degree to do what I do. But if I didn't have that experience, I would not be where I am in my career today. So I'm very thankful for my UNLV life and everything that stemmed from it.
I would say I agree with that. I think if I didn't go to UNLV, like I wouldn't have met the friends that I met now. And like the friends that you meet, they end up first starting as friends, but then like everybody grows, and then they're having opportunities and they invite you to things, or it's just, if UNLV didn't happen, I feel like I wouldn't even know the people that I know, or like the industry that exists here that could lead to like other things. So I agree. I think UNLV was like the first place that I started like my web of connection.
To echo that, you guys were all brought to you by UNLV. Go to UNLV. But no, we also went to UNLV, and I would say the same. It's like that. You start to create with the people that are closer to you and that are also seeking to create in an environment, and you're put kind of in the same place. And so school goes like, it really does create those relationships, and that's where you start to even build your own work and your own voice. But then I think afterwards, like when we all left school, it's like you kind of just gravitate towards the people that also inspire you and that want to tell stories. And like I feel like little by little, it's like a snowball. You just start creating these connections, and one job takes you to the next. And in that job, you meet a lot of people, and maybe you make a lot of connections, or you make one, but that connection is going to take you to the next connection. And just similar to what Becca was saying, but I do think that for all of us, it really did start, at least, I mean, the three of you, and I'll let you speak for yourself, but just the school community was the base of it all. Yeah. For me as well.
Yeah, I think working, like work as much as you can, because you will build your tribe. And like the tribe will just continue to like grow and grow and grow. And like by working, you can like meet incredible people. You can meet people that you're like, I never want to work with that person again, and I never want to be like that person, So I think that even like bad experiences can like bring you something good, because you can like learn and grow and be like, I never want to do that, or I never want to make somebody feel that way. But I think that just by like working and working as much as you can, you start to build a community. And obviously, going to school, going to grad school, you just start to build. But I think you build also by creating like a really good work ethic yourself, because it's not just about like who you want to be with, but also like making sure that also people are like inspired by you. So like it's an inspiration that just sort of like goes back and forth. So I
would want to add that like while film school worked for all of us, and that's where we got our start, I also don't want to make it like it's the only way into the industry. I think if you're a storyteller, you're naturally going to gravitate to other people that are storytellers. And it's like if you're in your hometown or you're like in wherever you are, if you want to tell stories, find the people who will help you make these stories. And I think it's like it's so hard to do it alone. So if you're like a director and like maybe you've pulled it off for many years and with your camera, but like eventually you'll need a group of people, because you want your stories to be bigger and like dream bigger. And I think it's like stronger when you do dream together. So I don't want to say college is the only way. I think there's a lot of accomplished directors that didn't have a film education. It just so happened that for us, that was like the base.
Right. And it's funny that we'd say that UNLV all brought us here, because the team of eccentric artists where we all met at UNLV Film also. So, I get it. You find the people that you work with well with, and just keep working with them. And it's interesting that we all mentioned undergrad. Constanza, I wanted to ask you about how you made the decision to go to grad school. Like what influenced you to want to continue school?
It's a complicated situation, because I mean, for like immigration reasons, I had to be a student for a really long time because I couldn't figure out like what was next. And so I think that in a way, school just like was something that was in the cards for me for as long as I can. And then finally everything got resolved, and I was like, wait, I feel like I need to continue like to grow out of like, because I had been at UNLV for 7 years, I felt like I needed a little bit of something else to help me like grow from where I was at the time. And I wanted to also learn about like what it was like to make movies in Hollywood. And so for me, it was really important to apply to AFI and to try to get in, because I had also like had other friends that had gone. So I had gone to the sets, and I had actually seen how
Much bigger.
it was a bigger scope. It was different. Like I remember going to Rachel Alterman's set, and there was like a doctor that was like putting a contact on. I'm like, oh wait, if you have a contact, like you need a doctor. So like learning by just visiting on sets inspired me to be like, oh my God, there's so much more that I have no idea what to do. And so I think like that was the desire to grow and learn more was like the number one priority. And also like it was an expensive but easy way to like move to LA and like build a community. And so speaking of the growing of your community and your web, it was that, and so it was one of the best decisions that I made. Like I have no regrets. If I could go back to school, I love school personally. Like if I could go and get another master's, I would absolutely do. Because I think like as filmmakers, you just never should stop learning. And so like Dome and I will like literally sit, like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I need to just go back to advanced directing. Like I like crave that. Like I crave that like injection of passion that school gives you on a daily basis to keep you going. And once you're out of school, you don't get that. So it's like up to you to like find that, it's like I need it. And so YouTube videos help.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Leslie, I wanted to ask you about coconut meat films, if you don't mind, and kind of talk about how that came to be and how it started and where you guys are at now.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know, but so me and Heather have actually known each other since we were 5. I was 5, she was like 6 years old, and we I don't know, just gravitated toward each other. We're both very lonely children, and so we started making videos at a very young age. And that sort of like evolved, I guess. We never really stopped doing that. We went to broadcast together, and we did the school news, and we made packages and all that stuff. And then in college, I took a little bit longer to commit to film because I was really passionate about other things that were happening in the world. And so I was doing that, and she was like, I'm gonna do film. So we kind of got back together, I think like a little bit after college. And we were both still very passionate about filmmaking. So we wanted to do something together, again, like we did when we were kids. So we just started sort of making stuff, content and stuff like that together. And now we've made a couple of short films, a couple of music videos. And I think COVID took a really big toll on creation for us. It was just, we didn't really feel comfortable putting people in those situations of like, going out there and doing stuff. So we haven't made like another narrative short in a while, but we're working on one now though, that we will be shooting next spring. So yeah.
Cool.
That's where we're at now.
Very cool. Looking forward to that.
Thanks.
And Rebecca, you were the founding president of Cinefems at UNLV Film, where all of us went. What, how did Cinefems come to be, and how did you find yourself founding it?
So I definitely don't think it ever would have happened if it weren't for a strong female professor that just got hired, Brett Levner. I think she was an amazing mentor and really, started everything off on the right foot. And then there were, a few girls, Maggie Werning, Leah Lashavio, Hannah Parker, who really kept it going afterwards. Because I knew I had just recently gotten fired from my job at the Hard Rock, and I was like really wanting to get involved. I knew like with filmmakers, you have to be involved. I mean, usually I was that kid that just kind of like sat in the back of the class and didn't really participate much. So as soon as opportunities for board member positions came up, I raised my hand and I was ready. And it definitely put me on the spot for just like public speaking and all these things that were just not my forte at all. But and we got a lot of hate for sure. There was a group of cinemens that were formed, like just people, and also a lot of female filmmakers that I respected and admired that just couldn't understand, I'm a woman, I want to be recognized for my work, not because I'm a woman. And I really think that as, minorities, whether you're, a majority or a minority in power, you need to continue to uplift minorities, because otherwise it's never going to level out. It's going to continue to be the same. And I was ready for change, and it was women on set. I mean, 90% of crews are men. So I definitely felt like women needed to be uplifted. So I'm really proud that I was a part of that.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear about. I think for me, like I went to UNLV and was a part of Cinefems, and I never really knew like the history about it until I had met you earlier this year, Rebecca, and I just didn't even realize that you probably did get pushback for starting that, and it was just something that I feel like I almost took for granted, like it was just there. Yeah, it's just a thing that's there, but
it was hard, but we made through, and I'm so happy that it's still going, and even through COVID, they did all kinds of online events. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, I think it is a great group, even though it is like tied to school still. I think it is a great group and a really great resource, and it's really cool to see women supporting each other and filmmakers just in general supporting each other. And I feel like that's what all of you ladies do in all of your work, your productions, really focus on telling unique stories and perspectives and all of that.
Cinefems really changed the culture of filmmaking at UNLV. Like it was like Rebecca was saying, like it got so much pushback at the beginning, and it was like the cinemans and oh no, I can't go sit there because we talk about, and we're like it's not like we sit there and we sit there and talk about making movies, and like right. And I think over time it became like, I think Rebecca, we started putting out good events.
Yeah, and that was with Brett Levner's help.
And at that point everybody was like, I want to join in because they're bringing like a Sundance director, because Brett had really good connections, had gone to school with really famous directors, and they were like, I want to be at that event. And so then little by little people started to show up, because it was really generated as like a community like board. It wasn't like just like a just for women, stay out, keep out. No, it was like anybody that's a filmmaker is welcome, as long as you're going to respect everybody. And if you do that, then you're welcome. And I think it totally changed the culture of UNLV. Even years later, it was like the ratio of male and female directors was like so much higher at Spring Flicks, and I think it really, this was some part of it. And I think Brett Levner, like you said, it's like she just like held ground and spoke up for all of us, and it changed culture. Bringing women into spaces changes.
That is a really interesting thing that you said though, Becca, because I will be honest with you. I was one of those people that were like, well, I just like, just from the name, like not from even understanding anything about it. I was just like cinefems. And I was like, well, I don't want to be just, I just want to be a filmmaker, right? I don't want to be like, well, that's the lady filmmaker group. And now you're in this group, So it wasn't until like I started really like paying attention, I guess, and like watching your guys' things and seeing the groups and seeing who goes to the groups, that I was like, oh, this is like a everything thing. But I'm just being honest. I was like, okay, is this like just for girls? Can like other people come to this thing? I mean, that's just the same way I feel about a lot of groups. It's like it made me feel like I wanted to be seen as a filmmaker, not as just a female filmmaker. And I didn't want to be prioritized because of my marginalization. I just wanted to be like a storyteller. So yeah, it's interesting though.
Definitely. That is very interesting. There's always two sides to a coin, and
Yeah.
So I wonder, I'd like to ask all of you ladies, as producers, do you actively seek out diversity, or is it something that kind of comes naturally to you? Like, do you just pick or like do you how do you fill your crews with people that you trust and have worked with, or how do you know when to take a chance on someone, when to bring in someone else?
We've done a ton of projects where like it just happens naturally. Like we set up like a bunch of meetings, men, women, whatever, like it doesn't matter. Like it was unintentional, and just the women just took the jobs, and like they just had, a lot of times, or people of color.
But I also do think you have to not just, because that's like, oh, lucky strike, because the majority of people are not people of color or women working in the industry, and so it's like less are you going to strike to hire those that group. So you have to make it a conscious effort. Like I think it's like if you're lucky and it happens because you just tend to surround yourself in an environment that is multicultural, multidimensional, in that way, then great. But I think it's so important to have a conscious approach to the balance that you keep with your teams and your crews, because a lot of times you'll just fall into the people that you've known and that you trust and that you've worked with for so long, and before you turn around you're like, oh, it's like, I'm giving the job to the same person every time. And it's not until someone says like, I can't do it because I'm on another job, that you start finding other people. But I think it's so important to just like, keep an open mind. As a producer, you have a responsibility to seek out more and more and more and more talent, and more diverse talent, if we really want to see a change in our industry.
Yeah, because it's not just about like in front of the camera. No, it's also about like who's behind it. And
you hire people.
And it makes such a big difference. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about Indeed Rising Voices, but in Indeed Rising Voices, it was really freaking cool to like get call sheets and like go to sets and be like, what the fuck? Like the diversity in a space, and then you see the work and you're like, damn, this is what happens when you like actually
expand the horizon too, like
just give opportunities, but yeah, it's like really important to be aware.
For people to be able to get jobs, what do you look at? Resume. What do you look at? Body of work. If we don't give opportunity to people to start building those credits, then what are they ever going to show to be able to get a job? So it's like we're so responsible as producers. We hold a really big responsibility for hiring appropriately.
I would say that because I mean, right now, currently, like all I work with is fighters. So it's not really something that I seek out. It's just, it comes with the world of fighting. I mean, there's people that are all different sizes, all different shapes, all different backgrounds, different countries. Like, it's like the most insane diversity of people you can imagine. And the only thing that they have in common is that they like to fight. So like, I don't seek out those stories. I feel very, very like lucky that those stories are just like the stories that I get, you know. It's just, it's completely diverse. It's always like, it's always a different region, a different background, a different where they came from, like their family situation, their home situation, their home life. And it's always pretty rough usually, because it's like these people are, I mean, fighting is what they're using to, you know, to get to have money, you know, that's like their bread and butter is fighting. So I feel lucky. Most of the stories that I tell are people who are just diverse, people of color, people from different regions. And it's not really something that I seek out, but I mean, like you guys said, I think it's especially special when you are looking at the crew too. And when you look around and you see that there's like a mixture and, you know, people of color, and because it does add to the project. It really does. It's like they all have these different perspectives. And you come with something in mind maybe, but then somebody brings something from, you know, from their culture, and then you see the kind of change. So yeah, it is really special, I think, to just always be aware of that.
Mhm.
That makes your project infinitely touch more people, you know, more kinds of people.
Yeah, I agree with you guys completely. I think as someone who hires groups of crew members, I think obviously it's important to have someone who's qualified. But like I said before, if we don't make an effort to uplift minorities and have a diverse crew, change will never happen. And I definitely want to be on the right side of change and make sure that I'm making that effort, because otherwise who's going to, you know? It's just, it's part of, I think, what we do. And like you guys said, that perspective, all bringing all types of perspectives into the filmmaking process is really important, because we all have good stories to tell. So yeah.
Definitely. A question for all of you. What do you think are some of the top qualities of an effective storyteller or filmmaker in your experience?
Like life experience, just doing things, seeing things, and, you know, telling it from your perspective and not, you know, what you think people want to hear, or, you know, other people's perspectives. I think, you know, for me, traveling is huge. I really enjoy traveling and just meeting new people. And I think especially since COVID, we've all got a new perspective on life now. And I want to be a good storyteller, even though I'm not the most creative. I'm more on the logistical side, but I definitely think that storytelling and just being yourself is the most important part of it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to being a really good storyteller, I would say, I mean, directors are like key, right? They're everything. And really what I look for, at least for them when I'm collaborating with like a director, is like specific, like to just be specific. And like you'll have some directors that are like a little bit more like, not, they're like, they kind of give you the ropes. They're like, I don't know, you figure it out. But what I find, I guess, more effective in storytelling is when you're more specific. And communication, I think too, is like a key. I think like there's like two types of projects, right? There's the types of projects where you're just like assuming what a client wants, or like you're like assuming what the director means. So just being able to answer questions, communication, And I think preparation, like just being prepared, but also going with the flow at the same time, like being prepared, but also being prepared to let it go.
I mean, I think communication, like Leslie said, is key. Being like, as a filmmaker, I think having a strong sense of communication, but also a strong sense of respect to everybody that you work with, and be kind. I think that those are some of the, it's like you can be an incredible filmmaker and a storyteller and have the best script in the world, but if you're a dick, I'm sorry, but it's like we don't want to work with you. But I think also communication, like not assuming, a lot of times we'll be in meetings and it's like, it's not clear to me. I'll just ask a question. Sometimes people are scared to ask questions. So, and then it opens up a kind of worms, and then you're like, we're getting somewhere now. So I think all filmmakers should ask all the questions, never be afraid, have strong communication skills. But as a storyteller, definitely having a unique perspective and like knowing what it is that you want to say and why is important. Doménica shared once, like you went to like a Sundance Q&A or something, and she said, she heard somebody say that just because you can tell a story doesn't mean that you should. And so I think asking yourself a question of like, what, because now we're like in a world where like anybody can tell a story about anything at all times. But I think that as a storyteller, looking into like, why is this meaningful? Why do I want to share this? Why am I gonna put my crew, through this? Why will an audience care?
Why would anyone give me money?
Is essential, especially in a time where like there's so much content, like it's everywhere. Like I'm sometimes like, I don't know what to watch. Like the options, like going to a restaurant with like so many options, are like, I don't have time. Like, I don't know, give me a salad. But anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I think it's like that. It's, are you collaborative? Do you have a good story? Can you tell this story? Like, why should you tell this story? I think, and are you creative and like respectful? And I mean, I think it's, it's, the standard is pretty high, because I do think at the end of the day you have to deliver and perform in an extraordinary manner. But I also think it's like very basic, like, human interaction, relationships, respect, care, that also help you be a stronger storyteller, because then you have like an actual like team of people and every department and I really do think that every person on a set is a storyteller for the most part. There's like a reason they're there, and I think it's because they seek story, because it's not an easy job. It's like it's like really, if you hate this job, it sucks to stand for like 12 hours or to run around or to carry things or to do things and then go home and work even more, and like, it's like, it's not an easy job. So I think it's like everyone on a set is a storyteller, in my opinion, one way or another, in their own department and in their own stage in life, and eventually you grow into different things.
Constanza and Doménica, I wanted to talk to you guys about Indeed Rising Voices. You mentioned it earlier, which was a collaboration with Lena Waithe. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was and the kinds of opportunities that came from it?
Absolutely.
It was an amazing project. Indeed, the job search company, Indeed, had an idea. They were like, okay, we have, how much does it normally cost to make an ad that we end up putting in like maybe the Super Bowl or like something major, and it's like around $1 million. And so in the, just the climate and environment that we're all in, Chris Himes, the CEO, was like, I want to do something more with that money. I don't want it to just like, we have to contribute and especially create jobs. And obviously it's like the BIPOC community has suffered so much in this and so like, let's figure something out. And they came up with, putting this money into the hands of BIPOC filmmakers. And then they approached Lena, and Lena loved it. And then Rishi and her came up with you know, we can't do like 100, you know, filmmakers, but we could do 10. We could do 10 stories at $100,000 each. And then they reached out to us and we were like, oh, it's wild. Like the timeline's so crazy, but I think it's doable. Like, let's make it happen. But also we need like COVID money. And they indeed didn't glitch at that at all. They were like, of course, we need like safe spaces. And we said, if you take 25 grand, which is like approximately what it would cost each film for COVID funds, like out of the 100, then you really leave a filmmaker with like less money. So they were like, no, we'll put it from outside. And then also outside of that, Rishi and Lena really believe that, as we do and as Indeed does, that filmmakers, like the writer directors, especially the writers, I mean both, but like writers don't normally get honored for their work. So there was a fund, an additional fund, for if you're a writer director, then you make the 10 grand. If you're a writer director team, then it's like 5 and 5. So,
but I think the kind of opportunities that it brought, because a lot of people, I've heard people be like, $100,000 is so much for a short film. And number one, that money goes by so fast. Number two, it created like a real opportunity of like you know, it's not like getting $10,000 and like, because with $10,000 you're gonna struggle to like figure out, like it just goes to food and like equipment, and you're struggling,
and you're asking favors,
you're struggling with like, how am I gonna do this? And so instead of like spending all the time that you need in prep to be like, we have the funds, let's get creative, let's use that money wisely to put it on the screen, no, and to get people on board and to have a crew and to not, you know, have like one person doing like the job of like 5 people that like is exhaustive. And so I think, you know, when you give this kind of money, you create opportunities for everybody to be like, this is how a real set is. You have the tools necessary to create without like stress, you know. So like, because it was a director's program, normally directors are so stressed trying to figure out the money and the budget and the schedule that they don't have enough time to like direct and to prep as directors and to prep with their collaborators and to prep. And then, you know, if you can't pay your DP, they're like, well, I have to, you know, I have another job, so like I'll just only show up to set. And like, that's not giving real opportunity, no. So like, I think that the money just created the real opportunity that's needed to like get BIPOC filmmakers that had already made, you know, short films, to get them to like the next step. And we wanted it to be like a really big jump, you know. We wanted it to be like, okay, it's a 3-month, like 2.5 month incubator where you like prep, shoot, and deliver a film in 2.5 months. Wow. Times 10, you know.
That's crazy.
It's insane. It's literally insane. But like, also like the opportunities that it brought, is like the program generated like around 800 jobs.
Wow.
You know, and so I think that when you start to see the trickle effect, and like these films like ended up in Tribeca. So like, not talking about the resume, it's like you start to grow a resume in like a big manner, and not just for the director, but like for the BIPOC cinematographers, for the BIPOC production designers, for the women, for like, you start creating like, it's like a bigger effect. And so I think that I think that just having access to money, like the one thing that people don't get is money.
Like, we asked one of our filmmakers today, we had a call, and I just said like, do you think you could have made this exact movie with like favors and less money? And he's like, absolutely not. And so I think, you know, this really does put opportunity in front of people who are ready to take it. And the reality is, like, you know, they're just really awesome filmmakers. They happen to be BIPOC, but they're just really incredible storytellers
that bring a super unique perspective and voice. Like when we watched the 10 films back to back, the power of that, like I had never seen that, because like normally you go to a film festival, like you watch different shorts, you know, whatever, but like to sit and watch like these short films back to back and be like,
it's hard to make 10 great movies.
I've never seen a program like that. Like the power of story and the power of the unique voice and the power of the collaboration, like it just flourished. And it was, I know it sounds cheesy, but it truly was magical. Like to see this, like we were like, holy crap, like what is this? So I think that that it just created a bigger opportunity that like $20,000 wouldn't have given.
And there was mentorship along the way. I feel like there's a lot of programs that we took advantage of, like as we were building bodies of work with other directors, and it's like, oh, here's the 5,000 grand, which is okay, you know, like it's good money. Here's the 15 grand, here's the 25, here's the 30, here's the 65, and it's like great, and you can make stuff, of course. But I think
But there's no mentorship.
But there
They
was
just give it
there
to
was
you.
also no mentorship, and all the liability ends up falling on you. And I think in this case it was like there really was like a production company behind every single one of the films, and it wasn't like the filmmaker signing out their life, you know, to what, and not even knowing or understanding the consequence of the bold decision that they are taking by receiving 5 grand, you know, or 15 or 25 or whatever it is, where you don't have insurance, you're asking your friend to let you borrow the insurance, which would never hold, you know, like it would be very difficult to actually stand a claim on that. And so,
And to be fair, we've made all the shorts, like all of them, the 5,000, the 500 and
yeah.
whatever. So like, don't let this stop you. Like if you don't have Indeed, Rising Voices giving you that money, like please continue to make and
I'm
create.
specifically saying this so like the brands who do give this money take more responsibility for what they're doing when they hand out this money and what they're asking of the filmmaker, you know.
I think it's really cool that you guys were like, I know we have this money, but also there's COVID. And so like, we need more money. Like that is such a good producer, because I think so many people like shortchange themselves and they're like, oh, well, you know, we'll just take it out of we don't want to like lose this client, right? So you just say yes. And then you end up sort of sacrificing, like you said, in the vision and like what it is that these people want to do, because like you didn't ask for like a little bit more. So I think that's so awesome that you guys were like, no, we need this, you know, like this is how we can do it so that we're not cheating people out of, you know, the money that they need to make their films.
And we were so lucky to be with a brand that was receptive to that, because like you said, there's people that are like, well, this is all I have. So
Totally.
figure it out, take it or leave it. And they put you, because you want to tell stories, you want to make stuff. They put filmmakers in a very, very tough spot, because you say, well, who's gonna give me the 5 grand if it's not this, you know? And then it's like you end up in like unsafe situations, or we see it happen in like big Hollywood movies. Like,
Totally.
you know, this happens all the time because someone's not either asking for more money, or, you know, or someone said no to more money when you really, really need it.
So that being said, we're definitely encouraging all brands to look at Indeed and look at the impact, because the facts are there when you watch the films, when you know, when you see where the filmmakers' careers are at, makes a difference. And to have the freedom also, Indeed allowed for a lot of freedom. For
They
the
stimulated
filmmakers
so many jobs. Like, I mean, I really think it came down from a place of like true values, true heart, and wanting to make true change.
And when you put Rishi, Rajani, and Lena Waithe, who are like
angels, like
true trailblazers of change,
and
in the industry, this is what happens, you know.
That's really interesting that you brought that up. One of the questions I had for all of you guys was, how do you stick to your beliefs in an industry that kind of runs off of exploitation? So you guys, you know, telling them that you just need more money in order to do this is a really cool example of that. But do you have any other examples? Do Leslie or Rebecca, do you have any instances of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I will say like with growth, like sort of comes like this, you eventually get pretty comfortable with, you know, saying like no, you know, when you need to, and just like passing up certain opportunities that you're like, well, it's not even just like gonna negatively affect me, but like my what kind of projects people will affiliate me with, right? So it's like, if you remember that you had a shitty experience on the set and you're like, well, who was the ringleader of that set? Oh, Leslie was the ringleader of that set. We're not going to work for her anymore. So I think like in the very beginning, I was definitely like the yes person, right? So I was saying yes to everything. I was just like, yeah, I'll take it, whatever. But then it was like with experience, like I found myself sort of being in places that I felt really uncomfortable. You know, I felt really uncomfortable, like asking my crew to, you know, stay overtime and like not get paid overtime. And then I was like, well, I did this to myself, right? Like I put myself in the situation because I said yes to this person. So I just think I've over the years gotten really comfortable with just, just saying no, and even if that means that like maybe I don't work and like maybe you have to go find a regular job, like I don't want to put people in a position where, where we're all just not safe or uncomfortable or not getting paid or not getting treated right. So yeah, I just got really used to being comfortable with the idea of saying no, thank you, in like a nice way, but, and also saying why, just being like, because sometimes I think you'll say no and people were like, oh, maybe they're just like lazy or something. It's like, no, these are the reasons why. Like you didn't pay attention to the fact that, we're working in the middle of a pandemic, for example, and, we need a little bit more money. So yeah, I think it just comes with time and maybe being in situations where you were like, maybe I should have said no to this.
Yeah, I think Domain and Cons, the fact that you created a safe environment for everybody, I think that makes a really great producer. And I think, it's just really important for us as producers. If we can't create that safe environment, nobody's going to want to work for us. So I don't want to call anybody out, but there was a feature that recently shot here that, completely exploited the PAs and just underpaid them like crazy. I know it happens a lot. I guess I'm naive to think that it doesn't happen all the time, but luckily I'm now in a position where I can say no to those things. And as a coordinator or a production manager, I don't want to work for people who are going to do that to their PAs and their lower level employees, because we all deserve, to make a living wage and to be appreciated for the work that we do. And I think one of the main ways you can feel appreciated is to get paid properly. And that's why, unions are in place. And unfortunately, PAs don't have a union, which they should. But it's part of being a good producer, is just creating a safe environment and being able to say no, which I have a hard time with, but I'm learning, I'm getting better. So
the exploitation of PAs is like not okay, because it happens to all level, like all
tiers, yeah.
positions, but I really think that the worst is the PAs, and like it's not right, it's not okay. It's like everyone's like, oh, because it's like more, like because they make less money, even if I was paying their overtime, is less money to pay than if I pay, if I leave someone else behind. And I think we can do better. We have to do better, because it's, it's our people. It's the people that make so much run. So it makes me sad to hear that there was a feature that came here and did that to our community. It's not right.
Yeah, I agree. I just think sometimes you have to be honest about a budget and what's feasible. Like nothing angers me more than when like a schedule is fit into a box that's unrealistic and everybody's just playing on unrealistic expectations that then lead to terrible decision making, to terrible work environments, to terrible accidents. No? We just have the recent example of Rust. Halina Hutchins was my friend. I went to school with her. When I think about that, it's like there's a trickle of decisions of like, we only have 7 million. Nobody will take the job. All right, well, we have no more money. So then you find people, it's a trickle. It's like a domino effect of bad decision making, because money is there. I'm sorry. There's so many rich people. There's so many, there's money. No, so the idea of like, I don't have more money, we can't find more money, is complete BS. And I think that you have to find integrity within yourself. And it does, Leslie, come with experience, but I would encourage any younger filmmaker to find it sooner than it took me. Find it sooner than it took Leslie. Find it sooner than it took Dome and Rebecca.
Yes, I agree.
It's going to be uncomfortable saying no and saying the things because you're afraid, because you're like, if I say this, but you know what? Once you go through that uncomfortable moment,
Mhm.
it's hard, and you're like sweating, and you're like, what's gonna happen? You will grow courage.
Good.
And with courage grows your integrity, because I think you need all of those to like stay in place, especially in an industry that um manipulates you to say yes. No, so it's like, well, you will never find a job again if you don't do this, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is my life. I've spent 10 years of my life doing this. Like, so to like not let fear and intimidation like get to you. It's like, walk out of any situation that you find uncomfortable. Call it out. If the first AD, if the producers, if nobody is doing anything, I think honestly it comes down to the crew. And it comes down to people being like, I will not put my life at risk for this job. So goodbye. And I think that if more people do this, then companies will have no other option than to change. Because unfortunately that happens all the time. It continues to happen. It happened during the IATSE talks. It happens during, like, you just see situations where you're like, why are you still putting people in shitty situations? And I think that it really comes down to the crew just being like, peace out. I don't need your money. I don't need the overtime. I'm not going to put myself in those positions. So like, I really, really, really encourage everybody to find the courage to say no, to walk out of dangerous situations, to call it out, you know?
And kind of what Leslie was saying, like, I really, really appreciated as I was coming up as a producer and like, obviously learning the ropes, because like as an independent film producer, like what's the one thing that gets you to become a producer? You have courage, and you have you're bold enough to ask people for permission to let you shoot somewhere, or you're bold enough to think that you can just do it. Like, I don't know what it is, but like maybe you just start there, but then you also have to, you obviously learn so much along the way, and like we have so much to learn. Like, it'd be crazy to believe that we know everything. We don't. There's so many, every job teaches you something new. Every job has like new different like things happening that you've never permitted for before, like, so, or like worked with like an exotic like animal, or like traveled to another country where things work differently, or like you work in COVID. Like, it's like every time you're learning something new. But I think that I don't know where I was going with this. Now I'm lost.
No, I think, yeah, I don't know. I was trying to help you because I feel like I knew where you were going with it.
Oh, now I know. Now I remember. So, but like, I really, really appreciate people who had said yes to projects that I did that were like union experience, like folk that believed in the vision and believed in me as a producer and said yes to working with me. And then like, I have a younger director that really wants more shots and more takes, and like my union gaffer that said yes to me is now saying like, yo, like we've been here for so long, it doesn't really work that way. Like, how can we, and like having them teach me as well, like, what goes and what doesn't. And kind of going back to your point, Leslie, where you're like, now I'm uncomfortable of asking people because I know it's wrong. Like, you don't know the first time, but like once you know, you have to do better. And I think it takes all of us to speak up. It's okay to like, be with your friend and want to help them make their movie, but like you also have to say like, I'm passionate about it and I love being here, but also like the hours aren't, like, come on.
Yeah.
And so we can all do better as like teams, and we have to say no, because the reason is like, even as we have, we've been in this journey for a little bit longer than maybe other people that are coming up, but like, if like young people make incredible work, young, like not full career people yet, like, because they're just starting, make incredible work. And the reality is like, if you say yes to things and make amazing things for like very little money, we can't even like protect that, because people can just say like, oh well, somebody made that for $5,000, can you believe it, and it looks amazing. And it's like, yeah, but like the working conditions weren't right. Like the director actually didn't make it for $5,000 because they had to pay out of pocket like coffees for everyone, and and so it's like, if you say yes, then it's hard for any of us to continue on the path of like better working conditions for everybody. And don't be afraid. Like, I think we rely on visual content, like our existence. It's how we see it reflected. It's how we connect. Like, I don't think our industry is going to go away, and that job is going to come back to you in a different way, and you're actually going to probably get paid for it.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to mention Leslie wrote a journal entry for us over at Eccentric Artists, and it's called People Over Pictures. And it is talking about exactly what we've just been talking about. And I just like to read a little excerpt from it to maybe encourage you watching to go read it, because it's really great. It's over on eccentricartist.space, but I just want to read this little excerpt here. This product over people approach stops when we refuse to allow it. I want to challenge to hold yourself. I want to challenge you to hold yourself and others accountable, no matter what your role. It's okay to simply ask, is this okay? Is this safe? Do I feel comfortable? And it's basically just everything that you guys have just mentioned, that it really comes down to holding on to your beliefs and respecting people and everything. So I honestly go read Leslie's journal. It's great. I feel like I'm going to need to read the last bit of it every time before I accept a job. She gives you a list of things like to challenge you to say no, because sometimes in your gut you know that you want to say no to something, but maybe it's your friend and you want to help them out, or maybe it's this DP you're trying to impress and you want to do them a favor, or whatever the situation is, but it's in your gut that you want to say no. It's definitely handy to think about when to listen to your gut, and usually it's all the time. So I would suggest go read Leslie's journal. But to keep us moving along here, I wanted to ask each of you to reflect back onto the first thing you ever produced. It could be film or like a scene from school or whatever was significant to you. So the first thing you produced, and then reflect on the amount of growth that you've gone through until now. And what is like one of the most important things that you've implemented as a producer that you've learned over time to do?
I think the first thing that came to mind just now was the amount of creativity that a producer can actually bring to the table. I think that earlier on I was a little shy, or I didn't think my ideas or opinions were valid, or were good enough, or were creative enough. And I would have these thoughts of like, oh, this would make the story better, I should say something. And fear or doubt, or fear that it would be stupid, or that it would be silly and that it would waste time, kept me from speaking up for a couple of years in my earlier career. And I think it wasn't until I realized, until I overcame that fear and I just started to speak up, and the responses were actually positive, and people were like, oh, this is great, oh my God, this is great. And like that I learned to understand what I could bring to the table creatively. And so I would encourage everybody to, if something comes to mind, and like now I preface everything with like, I will tell you anything that comes in my brain. Like every time I just meet a new director, I'm like, I will vomit ideas, like anything that comes to mind, because before, not saying something would then end up like being a problem in the editing room, or being a problem on set, or at a script level on set and editing. And so I think that, or in post, and so I think that for me, I think is the thing that comes to mind of like, know that, and it comes to every department head. It's like, if you have an idea, a thought, a question, like, challenge, because I think that's all we're doing, is we're challenging each other. You're like, I always thought everything was perfect. No, when I started, I was like, this is amazing, oh my God, I have an opportunity to produce. And I undervalued the what I could bring to the table. And not everything's right, but I think sometimes just saying something is like, wait, there might be a problem here, or this opens up a different conversation. So just be open, be collaborative. And if somebody shuts you down, they're probably not good people to work with, because it's a collaborative film is collaborative and an environment. And so that's my
I really take that to heart, because I feel like my answer was completely opposite from that. Just because I'm just, like I said before, I'm not the most creative person. And sometimes when I speak my mind, I'm like, oh my God, why did I say that? So I think that's really great advice. And I take that to heart, because I'm like,
love that. You are creative. What are you talking about?
but I'm just like, producers should stick to the logistics and creatives should stick to the creative. And
oh my God, no. The number one rule is that, like, any producer, even a line producer, the best line producers are creative producers. You're making creative decisions over and over again.
You're making a decision for the story. Like, whenever we interview like line producers, or like, it really is like, if you're only going to care about the money, I don't want to work with you.
That's
because we
great.
have to care about the money, but we have to care about the story. And the decisions you make about about the money are going to reflect it, like they're going to show up on the story. And I don't want someone that's just like looking after, coming like, I mean, of course there's a responsibility to the job. You have to, like, you can't just be like, here's $25,000 over, 30 grand, 5, 2. Like, no, you obviously want someone who can manage a budget, but like, it's that. And yeah, Becca, you are very
but I
think it's the space too. Like, sometimes people don't give you the space to be like, where you're like, oh, I'll just stick to my
like
thing.
I remember like having some meetings with like directors, because like when you interview like as a producer for a job, I'm like, I don't want just somebody that like wants me to just get them a location and find them their cast and like deal with the logistics. I want somebody that like wants me for what I can bring to the table creatively, because again, it's a collaboration. And I think that the producer director relationship is like, you were saying that earlier, it's like key, and there has to be trust, and you have to build, because there's so much that you can bring, your own experience, your own thoughts, your own questioning of something, like, will elevate the story, and you have to believe it. So get that out of here.
And there are like there's also like, producers that are like more logistically driven, and that's fine and it's okay, but like then you need a producer in the room as well that can work with the line producer and help them, sort of see both sides of the process. But yeah, and I remember Cons and I used to like, we had conversations with filmmakers, and we were like, it sounds like you want someone to tell you yes, and like schedule things for you, and like, so you can go make your movie. And like, I'm not that person. I work with a team. Like, I'm your team, or I'm not on your team at all. Like,
yeah, I would say that like both of your guys's answers are like exactly like what I think I think I started off when I was going to like pursue this idea of being a producer. I was like, I guess I'm just gonna like do paperwork, and like, I guess I'm just gonna like learn budgets. And then I realized that like, and it wasn't anybody telling me, right? Like, I was blocking myself from realizing that like I actually had like way more insight and input creatively than I was like giving myself credit for. But it just depends on like who you work with, right? So like me and Heather's process obviously is like really creative. So she's always asking me questions that aren't questions that you would ask a producer, like, where's this, like, if she writes a location and it's all just like in her imagination, but it's like my job to be like, I know like a concrete place that exists. I know 5, like, let's go look at those things,
That's creative.
And that's creative. Yeah. And I think like for a long time, I didn't realize like the creative potential that producers can have on a film, for sure. Yeah. So that's something, to answer your question, that's something that's grown personally within me. I think at first, I thought it was a very logistical, and then I realized that it is, but what makes you a good producer, what makes you different, what makes you special, what makes people call you is your perspective, is like your creative input. And directors like want to know those things. They need help, they can't just manifest all these things by themselves. They need other people to sort of show them, options. So yeah, I totally get what I agree with both of you.
I think one of the things that actually, as I'm thinking, kind of stayed with me from the first project to now is, I think, the pride that I take in the work.
Yeah.
And the responsibility as a producer. Like, I feel like, at the very beginning, I felt responsible to leave things like in order, in like clean.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel exactly the same way now about it. And I also care, I think, about the people as much as I cared before. Like, there was always, I think that is something that that has stayed with me. And something that I have learned along the way or changed is, I don't know. Yeah, I think I'll just stay with what stayed with me.
Final answer locked in. All right. We are coming towards the end here. So I think I'm going to switch us over to some audience questions. So we have a question for all of you, and it is, with so much content out there, how do you try to get your story seen and heard?
I mean, for me currently, I think it's there's sort of like two sides, I think, to the stuff that it is that I do. But the UFC, it's like I literally can't keep up with creating enough content because people are like obsessed with fighters, whether they're like a somebody or whether they're like a nobody. So like we're constantly pushing out content, and like I feel like I can't keep up, but I just feel like that comes with like the brand or the name, so I know people are going to see it. I know people are waiting for it. And I always feel like I can't make enough things. But when it comes to like, the stuff that me and Heather do, for example, for coconut meat, I think I still struggle with that. Like, I still struggle thinking about like, well, how are people going to see this? Like, how do I show this to like the masses and not just like at a film festival? So I will definitely say that's something that I'm still very much like working on. Like, how do I get more people to see the stuff that we make narratively?
Yeah, I think, it could start with just creating a YouTube channel, which is something that I just did like a month ago. So, it could start there and just sharing it with your friends and family. But it's hard. It's hard to get your stuff out there, especially when you said there's so much content. So I think, it goes back to Cinefems. You start and you just push through and you keep doing it until someone finally recognizes you and appreciates your work.
I think also, you have to think about what it is that you're creating. Because there's different spaces. Like if it's like commercials, you really don't control what the brand does with it. And so it's like the visibility. There's times you did a commercial that like was never like it just, I think there was like a brand change decision and like never came out. But like right then and then, but I think it's like there's the content that you can control and the content that you can't. But if it's like a music video, like of course put it out on like YouTube. And I think it is your job no matter what to like share it in every way that you can, in every outlet that you have at your hands. And then if it's like short films or whatnot, then it is like the festivals. And I think you have to celebrate your work, and like work hard to get it seen. And maybe it won't get the reach that you wish, like the whole world won't see it, but like maybe 10,000 people will, maybe 1,000 people will, maybe 50. Like it does, it's like, and celebrate the reach that it did have, and then keep make the next thing. Like it's just, and the reality is like everything is like so disposable now. It's like so much content that also just accept that like people are gonna forget about it tomorrow. So it's
totally
the next thing out.
Yep, just move on to the next.
Rebecca, you mentioned your YouTube channel, which has Tunnel Rat on it, that you guys recently just came out with. Can you talk a little bit about Tunnel Rat and why the subject matter was important to you?
Of course, yeah. It was a project brought to me by my friend Patrick Rigglesberger, and it definitely touches on veteran suicide, and I think suicide prevention in general is a special place. It holds a special place in my heart. I've struggled, I come from a military family that, all the men in my family stereotypically hold all their emotions in and don't like to talk about it. And I think the more that we put out content that makes people feel uncomfortable or makes them think, I think the better it is the more it creates more opportunity for change, and it makes people talk about it. So I think, just mental health in general I'm glad that people are talking about it more, and people just, there's a platform now that wasn't there even like 20 years ago. So it's great. I'm very proud of the project. I hope everyone goes and checks it out, but it's very, special to me. So
That's awesome. Yeah, it was really something. I was scared, honestly. But you guys did great work, and it's really awesome. It's really important film, I think. I'm getting word from Jem. We're gonna try and play the video now. So I hope that it works.
Every filmmaker in this program is unique and different, and they all have a different perspective.
You can have all the talent in the world, and it's like needing that chance to show what you can do.
It just takes that one person to believe in you, that one opportunity.
Cut.
That was perfect.
Moving on.
Thank God we did.
He ain't gonna do nothing to you, okay?
In the settlement that has now been agreed to, all the conditions that I laid down then have been met.
Ha sido un largo viaje para los verdaderos creyentes, quienes defendieron las MMA antes de que fuera una moda. En las altas y en las bajas, muchos han llegado y se han ido, mientras que dos marcas icónicas se han mantenido en la lucha.
There we go. That was a video of our featured artists, a little bit of a taste of their work. So I think we are coming to the end of our Q&A, unfortunately. But before we go, I'd like to ask each of you if you have anything coming up in the future that you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, so I'm currently working on a Fox TV show called The Cleaning Lady, which should be out soon. And I'm really excited about it. It looks awesome. And then Patrick and I are actually getting ready to shoot another short the weekend after Thanksgiving. And it also touches on mental health and all those things. So I hope it sparks a conversation and gets people talking. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can't wait to see those from you.
I think I mentioned earlier, but yeah, I mean, I have a lot of projects within the UFC that are coming out, but with Coconut Meat Films next spring, we're gonna start an Indiegogo campaign here pretty soon. We're working on a short film called Something Blue, and yeah, I'm really excited to get the team back together. So I'm excited for you guys to see it. I'll definitely share the Indiegogo once we get it up and running.
Awesome. Can't wait.
we are in post-production of a documentary show that we produced for season 3 for Netflix, so that will come out very soon and it'll be announced. We are prepping on a couple of projects that are going to happen next year. We're in development of a few projects, so staying busy, creative.
Yay, that's awesome. I can't wait to hear about the future endeavors for each of you. I look forward to seeing everything that you guys do. And I think that about wraps us up. So I'm just going to do a little outro and then we'll be all done. So thank you again for being here. Each and every one of you. I look up to you guys, and this has been really insightful, honestly. Like, I am just getting into producing also, so like selfishly, this Q&A was really great because I learned a lot. So I hope that the audience learned a lot also. But to close us out, that was our 7th edition featured artist Q&A. Thank you to everyone for being here tonight. To our audience, if you want to check out these folks once more, be sure to visit our website, eccentricartist.space, and follow all their social links. Oh, baby! Before we go, I just want to mention some Eccentric Artists events that are coming up. We have our sketch comedy show coming up. The deadline is Sunday, November 28th, and then the screening is Sunday, December 12th. And then also be sure to go check out Leslie's journal that she wrote for us and all the other journals that are up on the website. Other than that, that's it. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us tonight. And I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, Sam, for